Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. It's your girl Precious Molepo back with another video. As you can see by the title, I'm going to be speaking about my experience with auditing and just the evolving relationship we've had from undergrad to postgrad. From CTA, auditing was just one of those subjects that I had a love-hate relationship with, and it really switched up. It was one of those subjects that really switched up from undergrad to postgrad, so I thought that I should speak on it in case somebody's struggling with it. Yeah, so let's jump straight into it. I came from BCom accounting, then I did bridging, so BCTA, or basically third year BAc, before getting into CTA. So that's where I can say that I can compare my experience with auditing to the CTA experience with auditing. So in BCTA, the first auditing exam I had, it was I think I got 40-something% for it, but it was the only one that I failed that year. All the other ones I passed. So there was an issue with the first exam. I figured out what my issue was when it came to BCTA auditing, and then from there on I managed to tackle it and not to fail another auditing paper for the rest of the year. Then fast forward to CTA, where auditing was just a disaster along with the other modules. So I think what made me really struggle with auditing in CTA was the fact that I found it quite breezy easy in third year or BCTA. So I basically entered there with a mentality to undermine it, which was the problem. So the first exam I remember for my CE, I remember failing auditing dismally, like getting 5 out of 50, something ridiculous like that. How much percent is that? I'm curious. 5 divided by 50 times 1. 10%. No way. I think it was even lower than that. I think it was lower than that. I think it was like 2.5, 2.4, which was the discretionary mark. Yes, I got the discretionary mark for auditing and nothing else. So discretionary is basically where they give you a mark just in case they missed something. So the markers might have missed something, and then they give you that mark just to be safe. So I think I just got the discretionary mark for my CE. How much percent is that? 2.5 divided by 50. 5%. That sounds about right. Yeah, it was 5%. So I got 5% for my first auditing paper, which was the CE, and yeah, no, it was bad. It was really bad. So anyway, so that was the first CTA auditing paper, and I feel like because everybody had negative experiences with writing CEs, I was just like, oh, you know what, everybody, or majority of people would do bad in CEs anyway. This is my first CTA encounter. It will improve. And the next paper I got, I think it was in the 30s, and then it was in the 30s for the following paper, and then in September I remember vividly, like, okay, no, now I have a problem. I really need to push this auditing mark over the edge into the 50s. And I'm really struggling. Like, I don't know where to go. I don't know what to do. I'm genuinely struggling to push it over to 50. And I just remember doing a whole lot of questions, pretty directionless, but it's extremely desperate at the same time. And then obviously I wrote my final and I got 49% for that final paper for auditing. So the whole year I didn't see a 50% in auditing. And throughout the whole year, I think until the last 2 papers, auditing was either the second lowest or the lowest module performance-wise. Like I mentioned, a big part was undermining it. Also, I feel like that also plays a role in the sense that you feel like you're wasting your time if you spend so much time on auditing. I honestly felt like, oh my gosh, why am I spending 8 hours on auditing? Like, I should be taking this time and I should be sitting with accounting, you know, I should be sitting with the serious modules. But I mean, they're all important modules because at the end of the day, you need to pass all of them to pass CTA. But anyway, my mentality was like, no way. I can't be spending 8 hours on auditing, like I'm wasting my time. That was my thinking. So yeah, it was very rush. Even when I did do questions and I felt like, okay, no, it's time for auditing, like the questions were very rush. Like, let's say for pre-engagement planning, if I wanted to do 3 questions for pre-engagement planning, I wouldn't even focus on or look at whether I passed the question or not. I would just be like, okay, I've done 3 questions for pre-engagement planning. What's the next topic? Which is a huge mistake, because how are you moving on to another topic without seeing some sort of improvement or some results or something, you know? So not even though I was seeing the T's in the practice questions, I was just like, right, we're done with the section, let's move on. That was basically my relationship when it came to auditing in my first attempt. Sorry if you guys are new here. I passed CT on my second attempt. So I usually refer to the first attempt and make direct reference or comparison to what I changed in my second attempt. Yeah, so that's what I meant by my first attempt. So it was very rush. It was very neglected until the very end. Even when it wasn't neglected, it was not taken seriously. Like, I didn't give it the time that it deserved, you know? Anyway, let's look at how I pushed my mark up for auditing, because in my second year, auditing was my highest module. It was by far my highest module, actually, to be honest. So the first paper in my second attempt, I said second year, I mean second attempt. So my first paper for my second attempt, the CE, I wrote that and I got a 40-something%, right? Again, same thing with the BCTA. But that was the last 40-something I saw for auditing for the rest of the year. And I remember why I got 40-something%. It was because they tested application controls. And during my studying, I remember just rushing through application controls. Like, okay, I think I know it. Oh yes, and I was studying it the wrong way. So they gave us like a table for application controls. And they were basically telling us, like, if it is, because I think it's input, process, output, right? So input, I was cramming those things like review or edit checks. I was cramming in theory what input is. So edit checks, terminal controls. Each document has its own edit checks, but I didn't really understand, like, what do they mean by edit checks? So come in the exam and I saw application controls, I literally regurgitated and wrote edit checks. I wrote each document must have its own access control, you know, all of that, which was a mistake because I didn't apply it to the information. I just literally just wrote out what was on the slides and I tried to memorize it off by heart, and obviously I lost marks. And it was so, when you look at that memo, it was like so simple, like you could really think it out, like you could get those marks, like you could have gotten 20 out of them. 30 marks that were available. That's how simple it was, but I complicated it. It was another situation of rush, I think. But anyway, so yeah, that first paper I got 40-something. Then the rest of the papers for the year, I was in my high 60s, which, like I mentioned, was my highest CTA module mark for my second attempt of CTA. So how did I push my mark from a 40-something to a pass? Or even worse, let's compare to the first year. How did I push it from like a 5% to a pass? So what I feel like helped push it over to a pass is definitely the fact that, because towards the end of the year in my first attempt, I did a whole lot of questions. As much as I was in a panic state, I did so many questions, and I did focus questions. So basically, I looked at, let's say, pre-engagement planning, and I would do the practice questions that were given to us or available to us, part of past papers, part of what's that book called? There's some textbook, case study, yes, that one. Although I didn't use it much, I didn't find it helped. But anyway, I did the questions that they gave us, right? Let's say, for example, for pre-engagement, I did those questions. And when I say I did those questions, I don't mean 9 questions and then trying to get through all 9 questions. I picked 3 that covered all the bases. So, for example, I picked a question that tested it like, what are the considerations when it comes to pre-engagement? I picked a question that spoke about what pre-engagement steps should the firm have taken, and then I picked a question that said, what did the entity miss? So what I'm trying to say, what did the audit firm miss before taking on this client? So what I'm trying to say is the questions were very different. From all the questions that they prescribed from us, I took the ones that, like, let's say if there were 2 that said state the considerations of the audit, I'd only take 1. So I would take the different questions, at least 1 of the different questions, even if it leaves me with 3 questions out of the 10 prescribed questions, and I would sit with those 3 questions, and I would do those 3 questions, and I would redo those 3 questions until my mark improved. So for example, if I took the consideration one, I would do it today, I would mark it, I'd probably get a 2 out of 10, for example. I'll see, okay, what did I do wrong? Okay, so I forgot to mention independence in this question, right? Okay, cool, no pressure. Let's try to remember independence. Then the next day, when I did the question again, I would remember 3 things, including independence. And then when I mark it, I would learn 4 things, So I would take it little by little. I wouldn't really push with the question with the mentality of, this is the last time I'm going to look at this question. I would spend time with that question over a long period of time, even if it was in totality doing the same question 5 times, because if now that question was thrown at me, I would be able to get, like, say 80% for it, for example, because I really gave myself time and was patient with myself when it came to the memo and what I remember, and testing what I remember, very important. So not just saying, okay, no, I did this question, I got 4, well, I got 5 out of it, I'm good. Do it again to see if you really remember those 5 points, you know what I mean? That was my approach with that. What did I want to say? Being patient with myself when it came to questions. Oh yes, with auditing, I don't think you should think of it as I'm wasting my time with spending time on a question, because auditing is very repetitive. Also, the way they ask it is very repetitive. So there's like 10 sections with 10 possible questions, but trust me, they're repetitive. So if you spend some time on and cover your bases with 3 different types of engagement planning questions, chances are one of those questions are going to come out and you're going to exercise or use those principles again in answering it. So don't be discouraged. Auditing questions are repetitive. Just cover your bases when it comes to each topic with them. Auditing, make sure you master it. Make sure you do the question enough times to pick up your mark. So basically, a lot of people like to speak of it as having a toolbox, and you want to fill your toolbox with tools, right, to help you pass a question. So that's basically what you're doing when you're doing a question and you're marking it. You're learning something that will help you generate marks in the exam. So you add another mark in your toolbox, you add another mark in your toolbox. So in my opinion, when you redo a question, when, let's say, you do it, even if you're tired and you do it like in a day or 2 and you're with a fresh mind, you know the 3 points that you stated, you remember 2, and now in the more fresher state, you're more likely to remember 3 more, and already your mark is at a 7 out of 10 or 8 out of 10. So yeah, that was my approach, and it was basically repeat. So for each topic in auditing, I would literally see which questions cover the bases, and I would do those questions, and I would make sure I mastered those questions. I know it seems like a waste of time to redo questions, but it really helped me to the point where I reached a point where I stopped studying for auditing, because I would effortlessly get high 60s, even if I didn't study, even if I did all the questions in the beginning of the year, for example. So I really encourage this. Of course, you should understand your work as well, but I suggest that you don't spend too much time on theory. I think auditing is one of those subjects where you need to spend time with. Listen, my advice is to push your mark over 50. It's not for distinctions. I didn't pass the distinction, but it's definitely for those who are struggling and are really looking for that difference to topple their mark over a 50%. So that was my approach, guys. That was how I tackled auditing. Give it a try. Be patient with yourself. Pick out a few questions. I feel like I'm repeating myself, but pick out a few questions and repeat them until you can see that your mark is getting higher and higher the more you do it. You might think, oh no, but you're memorizing it. That's fine as well. I feel like even if you memorize a question, that principle that you learn from that question, you'll be able to use those principles in another question, because auditing is so repetitive. I hope this video helped you guys. Happy studying. Don't forget to like and don't forget to subscribe. Bye.